Apologies for the late start. Hi everybody, I'm Georgie Rogers and welcome to the Resurface workshop. Resurface is an initiative put together by Microsoft Surface to bring back the energy and atmosphere of live music during lockdown. The first gig was headlined by the incredibly talented Jade Bird, an up-and-coming performer who sadly had her US and UK tours postponed due to the global pandemic. The gig itself was watched by over 2,500 people live, with over 16,000 total views to date. It featured all four members of Jade's band, some incredible visuals and interactive animations, which created a truly unique shared experience. I'll be speaking to Jade and the key team involved behind the scenes to find out how the show was put together. Give us a wave, guys. And we'll also see how other musicians can use these techniques to stage their own online gig. Throughout the show, we'll also be taking questions from you, our lovely audience. So if you have a burning question, please put it in the chat below and we'll pick out a few as the show goes along. So let's start by taking a look at one of the tracks that was performed on the night. It just looks so brilliant, didn't it? So I'd like to welcome Jade to the workshop. Hi, Jade.
Hello, Georgie. How are you doing?
I'm good. How was it watching that back?
Yeah, pretty unusual. I mean, it's just been a long lockdown, but that was definitely a highlight of it. I think it was just super exciting and a bit nerve-wracking, but in a good way that I'd associate with probably playing on a live stage, you know?
Yeah. Like many musicians, you have been on hiatus since lockdown. How's it been for you and the band?
I mean, we've obviously, most of us have been separate. Me and Luke, my guitarist, we were together right when the lockdown started. So we were sort of together through a lot of the process. But yeah, it's really weird. I started off writing pretty heavily and then sort of really quelled for some reason, probably lack of inspiration and movement. But then I'm sort of coming back out of it a little bit now. But I think it's been quite different for everyone. It's quite a unique experience.
Yeah. And when you're in a band, you spend so much time, on the tour bus and off. So have you kept in touch regularly over Teams during this time?
Yeah, we go on Jackbox and we play this little alien game where you have to guess who's the alien and a lot of goofy things like that. A bit of Minecraft. I'm a proper nerd, so. But yeah, every time we were sort of finishing up the rehearsals or the performance, we'd all like straight away get on FaceTime and be like, "Oh, I miss you," you know. So it was quite nice in that respect to remember what it was like being together. And like you said, we spend so much time together usually, so.
And you mentioned times of being really productive and then times of not so productive. Have you found it quite an inspiring time? Have you been writing lots of music?
I mean, I probably would love to say yes, it's been so inspiring, but honestly, no. I wrote most of my second record in February, and I was really I said everything I wanted to say. And so then I started recording it in Nashville, and as soon as the lockdown happened, I was in Nashville mid-session and had to fly back and sort of sit on my hands on all this music. So it's pretty tough in that respect, I think, but there's worse things in the world than not being able to record your music, it's a privilege, but it was different.
But it's what you do, you're an artist, you're a musician. A lot of that time is spent in the studio, but then a lot is about going out on the road. Just how much have you missed performing live?
Yes, I mean, a lot. Like you said, my entire purpose is to sit here and try and spread joy and try and spread sort of catharsis through my music or through music, full stop. And so the tone of this time is one of reflection and one of a serious nature. And so sort of learning how to engage with that or sit back and listen has been a very different way for me to work out how to contribute to things in the outer space, not just sort of me. And yeah, like I said, it's just challenging the time, but this was a highlight.
Yeah, so what did you think when you were initially approached to do this online gig by Microsoft Surface?
Yeah, I was. I'm always up for a challenge. I think I always like to sort of put myself in new experiences, and online is a really fascinating thing to engage with. Like I do the live streams and everything, but the idea of being able to do like a live show with my band, because that's the main thing I'm missing on my Instagram. You know, it's just me playing.
We've lost we've lost Jade there for a sec, but I'm sure we'll get her back.
What about now? Hello?
Continue.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just saying the sort of usual formats of playing live is very solitary, and I was quite looking forward to having more of a communal thing, back with my band again. So, yeah, that's the gist of it.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process for this? How did you overcome the physical and technical challenges of the fact that you weren't all able to be in the same room, separate homes, but yet still being able to perform together?
I mean, we use a lot of humor to sort of get through anything that's awkward. So we're having like a good giggle about the whole process. And the actual challenges were more how it sounded and how it looked. I really like to get my aesthetic across. I worked with this amazing person, Kate Moros, on all of my material thus far. So getting her involved and being able to talk about how, it could sound and it could look and that would be conducive to the way I do things, because otherwise it wouldn't feel like me and it wouldn't sort of feel like my music. And at the end of the day, that's sort of the main thing, I guess, is when you're an artist, you want to play your music and who you are and try and get that across to the audience. That's the sort of experience, I guess, of a live show.
Yeah, definitely, and something that fits your aesthetic and feels comfortable and right for how you portray yourself when you're playing on stage.
Yeah, I think anything too, sorry, Georgie. I think anything too glamorous or too glitzy always is a massive turn off for me. What I write is sort of very much straight from me, and about my life and the people around me and things I care about. So everything around that has to sort of be in line with that, or it just feels a bit wrong in a way.
What was it like performing from your living room? Obviously, it's a bit different to a gig venue.
Yeah, I mean, we were clearing out because we moved through lockdown. So it was just the whole thing is pretty strange. You know, you've got this big backdrop and my dog's just like wandering in and sort of being like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And you know what I mean? So that the whole thing was pretty unusual, but I live for a challenge and I really loved, the adrenaline because obviously I was just playing on a click in my ears, and if I started the song wrong, the band were pre-recorded. So if I did anything wrong, it would just be a car crash. So I was sort of like holding my breath through the whole thing, trying to get it exactly perfect, because otherwise it would have spoiled it. And it's all live, so it was pretty. As I said a lot of times, unique experience. Yeah.
Yeah, no pressure there. I remember you mentioning your dog, and I was thinking as I was watching it, I really want to get a visual on the dog. Did he enjoy it? Best seats in the house.
Yeah, I mean, he has, multiple reactions. He's quite a complex character at heart, but I think overall he was quite excited by the activity in our family home. Yeah.
And what advice would you give to other musicians that are wanting to put on an online gig at this time?
I'd say just try and make it come from you and what you care about in terms of whether it's how it looks, whether it's what you say. If your music, you want it to bring joy to people, sort of be uplifting and try and, really engage with that moment. And there's no point in being snobby about a certain thing. If you do it, I find, I'm you need to be kind of happy to be wherever you are because people are taking time out of their days to watch you. But yeah, I'd say just sort of have fun with anything at the end of the day. And if it goes wrong, you just laugh it off and move on.
How did you approach the live chat in between tracks? Because obviously you had the band to bounce off, but then also, I suppose it was probably quite like a gig scenario where you're just chatting off the cuff in the moment.
Always. I ramble about so much nonsense when I'm on stage, just because it's like nervous energy. And I also just, I don't really hide who I am. I'm quite goofy. The guys are quite goofy, and that's kind of what we're like. I think it's probably a British thing as well. You know, we like our humor over here. We like to be, a bit weird and wacky and ourselves, I guess. But yeah.
We've got some questions from the audience, so I'm going to go with this one first. You mentioned a few times in the show how much you missed the band. So how important was it for you to have them with you?
Yeah, I think it was essential to the process because otherwise I imagine it would be quite cold. I bounce off an audience or I bounce off my band or, the vibe of everything. So I think having them there with me and being able to talk to them and it was so essential. Otherwise you're sort of just doing a monologue to a camera and, I'm not an actress. So I don't think that would have been very good for anybody. Yeah, but I loved having the band there. It was one of the best things about the whole thing, I think.
Oh, nice. And this is a question that I think is on many people's minds, but can you tell us anything about the new album?
Yeah, as I said, I wrote it all in February. I'm still writing now. I'm sort of doing that last spurt before I go and properly record it in the next, month, hopefully. But it's got a lot of optimism. It's got a hell of a lot of honesty, as always with my music. It's a lot more mature, which is probably the thing I'm most proud of. It's the best songs I've been writing, since my writing career started. So yeah, I'm really excited to start piecing together everything, the new world, the second album's world. I'm really excited. I wake up, I sleep at night just thinking about the whole thing and how I do that. So yeah.
It doesn't sound like there was too much tricky second album happenings going on then.
Well, on the road, I pride myself as a big writer and writing all the time. And on the road, I had such a busy year in 2019 that I wasn't doing that at one point. And so I got a bit frightened and I took some time off over Christmas for, various health issues. And then I went to near Woodstock where I wrote my first album and I was like, come on, give me something. And I just sat there for 10 days, for 6-7 hours a day, just writing and writing and writing. And then, it appeared as it does, it's this unpredictable thing is the spiritual realm of songwriting, but sometimes you get lucky. And I think that I got lucky in the second, so we'll see.
And another one here, you performed a few tracks in the gig and some were softer moments, some real punchy moments, you and the guitar. Which was your favourite song of the whole set to perform?
It's a great question. I think I Get No Joy. I think that's the one I almost messed up. Like I started it and
we've just lost signal for a minute or two, but Jade is going to stick around. She's back.
Sorry, as I was saying, I Get No Joy, basically the click was coming in and I didn't know if I'd started it and I didn't know if it was starting and I was not sure of the bar I was on and I'm sort of just looking and just doing it and it could have gone horrendously bad, but it didn't and it was a really good time and I was smiling because I was like, I got away with it. Ha ha ha. So yeah, it was good.
So Jade, thank you so much for chatting. Do stick around. We're going to come back to you.
Cheers, Georgie.
But now let's speak to Mark, who is the executive producer, and Kira, the live producer. Hi, guys.
Hello there.
Kira and Mark, welcome to the workshop. So we just heard a little bit from Jade there about the process involved in putting the show together and pulling it off. Talk to me about the main technical challenges for you guys.
Well, I think we literally just saw the main technical challenge just there, which is the internet and latency. And when you're trying to do anything remote, like we are now, and like we were for the live show, you're dealing with there's loads of things you can control. The thing you can't control is the internet and the latency. And if you're doing a chat show like this, it's sometimes not ideal. If you're doing a live music performance, though, and you want to have your band members playing together to the same track and you have any latency issues like that, it's just going to be impossible for them to perform together. So when we first spoke to Microsoft Service about this project, we were like, wow, this is really exciting, but it's kind of crazy ambitious because no one's really done this properly yet in lockdown, and that's before we even get on to, how ambitious we were with the visuals. But in terms of getting a band of 4 people performing simultaneously in real time and making that happen and making it slick was the holy grail. And that was, that was really difficult to do. And what we had to do was we were trying to work out the process. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this where Jade can hear her band members, they can perform, they can all do it together, and there's not going to be lag? And the solution we came up with, which Jade mentioned briefly before there, is we actually decided to pre-record the 3 band members. So there is a live performance, but pre-recorded, so that we can then play their 3 live performances into Jade, and she can basically then perform live in real time to the backing track we've created from their live performance. And that way we can create what we did, which is this unique live performance moment with Jade and everything she's doing live, and the chat in between them. We also had a live feed with the band, so when we did that chat, that was all live as well, so they could interact between the songs, which, as Jade said, really important for her band, for the dynamic between them. We wanted to make sure we captured that. So that was a really big technical challenge we had to overcome. And then we had to do all of this in lockdown. So, I think Kira will talk about this normally in terms of how we'd like to do this. Trucks would turn up, multiple people, loads of equipment, cables everywhere. That was all taken away from us. We can't work like that in this scenario. What we have to do instead is go, okay, what's the bare minimum crew we need to send to each of these 4 houses, obviously wearing full protective gear, masks, gloves, safe social distancing from Jade and the bandmates. And how can we still do what we need to do in this way? And it's a completely different way of thinking, and it's really challenging. You're seeing some of it here. We've got a really stripped down crew, we've got some equipment there, and we're trying to do stuff that really we'd love to do properly with tons of people and tons of equipment. And so the combination of the live performance and the much more stripped down crew that we could use to achieve all of this was for us, I think, the biggest technical challenge. And Kira had to deal with this, and she comes from a world where you kind of have all the toys in terms of equipment and people to normally play with, don't you, Kira?
Well, jumping in just on the back of what Mark is saying about the amount of crew, obviously safety was our number 1 priority, as well as giving the audience the live experience. So if you were doing this at a strip down at a festival, or even in a studio, you would have had a lot more people. You would have a floor manager given a visual cue, as well as the director given, Tony in this case, given her cue in her ear. So I think there was a lot more pressure on Jade. We obviously stripped back our crew to give minimum crew but maximum impact. But then once Jade started a track, we couldn't talk to her because she was writing her performance, so you'd no floor manager or anything there. So really, I think there was added pressure on Jade, but she coped brilliantly with it all, and everything went really well.
Yeah, it must have just been so much more challenging with the social distancing guidelines in place.
Yeah, it was. And, as well as the social distancing, and you forget how much non-verbal communication goes on between people when you're working closely together, that things normally just happen. And even in the gallery situation, I wasn't in the same gallery as Tony, which was really unique. And we also had a timings PA who we were all doing it over mobile phones, and you'd normally do it in one massive gallery. So that was just an added level that none of us had experienced before, because obviously this is a very unique time of doing these things. But, you learn to adapt. And I think that was the thing. Everybody learned to adapt to the situation.
I'm sure there were so many people watching that are artists themselves thinking, oh, how can I do my own version of this? What kind of equipment would a typical band need to do something like this themselves?
Well, I think, our ambition, and, Tony and Jason will talk about this more, I'm sure, in depth, but our ambition from a visual perspective was to really set a really high bar. And that was because we've all seen loads of these shows so far on video conference calls like we're doing now with music performance, and they're great. I think when it first went into lockdown, that was great. People were excited to see anything. It's like, okay, there's something I can watch now, and this is good. But over time, people got slightly used to that, and that became the new norm. And we wanted to really raise the bar on that and create this great kind of visual look that we've got here now. So we brought in, Jason and all of his team to create this incredible graphics, and Tony to do a fantastic job directing it. And while we had stripped down kit and crew, it's still stuff that would be beyond probably, the the kind of stuff that the average person at home would be able to access. So we set the bar up there, but now what we want to say is, okay, we've done this, but there are lots of simpler ways to achieve something that is still certainly in the same ethos of what we've done. And that could be, a combination of, using webcams like we are now, and just, podcasting microphones like I've got, and all little things like that. People that people have got at home on their own devices anyway. You don't need to have all the top end equipment. And what you can do is take the learnings from what we did, but try and add a bit of creativity to it, which is maybe you've got, friends or colleagues or people involved in the band who can create graphics and elements that you could incorporate. You could use streaming software such as OBS. If you know anything about streaming, you'll probably be familiar with this. If you're not familiar with streaming, it's free. You can go and download a trial and try it out. And it's quite a powerful tool that you can sort of replicate a lot of stuff you do in a broadcast environment, but on your computer at home. And you could have done like we did. You might have got 3 of your bandmates to record their elements of the track. You could play all of them at the same time, and you could sing and perform over the top of that in real time to create a kind of stripped down version of what we did. You could also add graphics and other layers like that to really try and create, something that's in the spirit of a live performance rather than just a video call, which is, obviously what we were trying to do here.
And Georgie, one of the other things that we wanted to create was an environment behind Jade, so it didn't just look like she was performing in her bedroom, that we wanted to give it a feel that it was an actual live gig. So we just put photo paper behind her so that we could create the environment in conjunction with the graphics. But, obviously people may not have enough space to put up photo paper, but if they just had a white wall, and it's all to do with, how you are as a performer and what sort of environment you want to create.
And I think that's a great point, Kira, that it's not all technical stuff as well. I mean, the technical stuff is great and the graphics, but it's being creative with what you've got around you as well to just create something that's visually more interesting and engaging rather than, just relying purely on graphics or seeing that as a barrier to entry to go and try this yourself and go, hey, well, what can I do that's cool and interesting with my backdrop, and just make it feel more like an entertainment space.
Yeah, you mentioned the backdrop. Are there any other extras, any other little things that you can put in place to make it really professional sounding and visually?
So again, with the from a technical perspective, with the equipment, it's a sliding scale. You can start with, whatever you're using for your normal video conferences, whether it's a webcam or a basic microphone. If you want to upgrade your kit slightly, you could look at what a lot of bloggers, vloggers, people who do podcasts are using, such a microphone like I've got now, or you could use a webcam or upgrade that to maybe a DSLR that you might be able to plug into your computer to get even better picture quality. And then you can obviously go up from there depending on what equipment you've got or got access to, whether there's camcorders or even, professional video cameras. The further up you go, the better it'll get. But you shouldn't use the lack of equipment to be a barrier to entry, because you can do this on basic kit. And obviously what you're seeing now with us was the high end version, but you can replicate similar things to this in software and with consumer kit that you can get pretty easily from a number of places.
Now, there were lots of interactive moments in the set. There was animations and stickers and audience questions. How did you develop these? And is this the sort of thing that people can easily replicate at home?
Well, I think the rationale for this is that, we'd managed to get the 4 band members together, but the thing that's still missing is, the audience. And I think Jade talked about this earlier, is that, the dynamic between the performer and the audience is so important in any live performance. And obviously, Jade was stood in her living room, just with a camera there and no one else, and performing to that. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. And, I think you saw in the show, she did an amazing job at that. And it's really, really important to emphasize how difficult that is, because you're not feeding back off that audience. But what we wanted to do was give the audience that voice still. And so we looked at the interactive functions on a lot of streaming platforms that you're seeing here, where we can, give the audience the opportunity to show their appreciation with GIFs and with animations that, a lot of different platforms have. These are all custom designed by Jason, who might chat about these later on as well, to fit in with the style and look of the show. but also to give that audience their voice in the performance in the same way that they would clap in between songs or cheer. And, you know, for Jade and hopefully the fellow band members to see them, you know, that they could see them back on their screen and hopefully kind of pick up on some of that energy as well. And that would help the performance in the way that it would hopefully in a live show. So that was our ambition for that. And again, people at home can create similar things to this with basic animation, with stickers. But there's loads of different places online where you can get free or very, very affordable graphics to use in this way. But it's being creative and obviously being aware of, you know, how you want to portray yourself as well in terms of how you create that. But I think that really added a lot to the show.
Question for you, Kira. What were you most proud of?
I think it's probably the fact that it felt like a gig, that, you know, we worked closely with Jade on her song selection and made sure that it wasn't just, you know, that the gig had definite start, a middle and an end. So there was, in want of a better word, bangers to open, then we slowed it down a bit in the middle, and then the energy ramped back up at the end. And also the fact that there was still some interaction with her and her band members. And because we went live at the end of each track, and we had these interactive moments between her and them, it just showed the audience their relationship, because she's, as Jade herself has said, she's very close to her band. And just the fact that there was, you know, some nice moments between the four of them when they were chatting about what they were missing and things. So it did feel like that organic relationship came across on screen. Well, I think it did. And it all felt quite natural. And, you know, even Jade saying that she messed up, only she would know that, or, you know, we might know it, but the audience didn't. And it was just that sense of adrenaline that you get, you know, not only performing a live show, but working on a live show.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A question from the audience now. Do you think that we will see more of these online gigs in the future, even post-lockdown? Is this going to be part of the way we experience gigs from now on? For Kira, that's for you.
Okay, I think yes, but as the guidelines are constantly changing, you know, I know that if we were going to do this again, you would maybe put the band in one space, obviously socially distanced. And, you know, you can already see that production is moving on because people don't have to be isolated. They have, you know, the guidelines are constantly changing. So if you were going to do it again, you might have all the band, but no audience. You know, there's various things on TV at the minute that they're getting around it by just having the social distance measures in place. So yeah, I think it is, because it's still a very unique way for artists to perform their music, you know, so, and coming up with new ideas, like all the graphics really added to the performance. So it's just something else to add to your own performance. And I think more bands will probably explore that.
Yeah, I read there's a story recently of announced some drive-in gigs. That's a new one.
Yeah. I think to add to that as well, I don't think the world will just immediately go back to normal. And I think there's some learnings that we've got in this period we're working through now that will still carry forward. So yeah, I mean, in the ideal world, the band would still be back together. There'd be an audience there. But, you know, if you've got, you know, a special guest on a certain track that you can't get there for a performance because of, you know, geographical reasons or cost reasons or whatever, you know, we're thinking, well, maybe now there's an option going forward to go, well, okay, we're going to remote in, you know, someone for duet or something like that. So I think it's kind of opening our eyes to different ways of working that we're having to do now through necessity, but it's not like we'll forget them all and just forget everything we've learned, you know, in a few months' time or whenever it is when we can sort of go back to normal.
And to you, Mark, as well, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I think, you know, we had a lot of learnings doing this, and I think, you know, there were a lot of technical challenges and creative challenges in terms of what we're doing that was so ambitious. And I think, like Kira said, you know, the things have evolved so much that by now we, you know, if we were to start this today, now looking at this idea, we probably would explore having them in the same physical space. Although I kind of like the energy of seeing, you know, Jade. We see she's at home. We see some of the band members. We see their bed there, you know, and you kind of really identify and empathize with them in a slightly different way than you do if they're just in an empty cavernous stage without an audience. So there's a kind of a real charm to it. But I think I'm sure from Jade and the band members' perspective, while this worked, it would have been an even better experience if they could have actually performed together and interacted. Because I think, especially with Jade and the band and most bands, there's a lot more of a dynamic interaction in the music while you're performing, rather than, okay, I know what I've got to play, I know I start now and I've got to keep in time, otherwise the whole thing falls apart, which is technically very challenging for them, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not a musician, but it doesn't leave as much room for maybe a bit of freedom and creativity and interaction in the performance sections as I'm sure they would really like. So yeah, I think that's probably like Kira said, where the direction would go if we were to start this from today.
Thanks, Kira and Mark. I'm gonna get Jade back on. Jade, what did you think of that? What was it like for you going from going from rowdy venues to essentially a much more bedroom-focused experience?
Yeah, I think it's different, but I also think, you as a musician, you sort of take every environment for what it is. So if it's a rowdy bar, you adapt your set to the rowdy bar. If it's a home recording, you do that. I think the set has a lot to do with that. But to be honest, I knew what this was. I knew what we were trying to do. And yes, you won't get improvisations, but I think as long as the chat is improvised, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think, it is a live performance from home in a way, and he kind of did what he said on the tin in that aspect. But yeah, it's just new environments for me. I just enjoy sort of playing wherever anyone will sort of have me. And this was just another different kind of thing to do, I guess.
And if you were to do more going forwards, just going back to what Kira and Mark said there about actually being in the same space, would that be preferable to you if you were to do future online gigs?
It's a different thing. It's really hard to say because I've done live sessions, for various kind of publications or whatnot. And you're just as much kind of at risk of someone messing up their take, and messing.
We've just lost Jade for a quick second there, but she's back.
As always, these nice 5-second interviews, at least it lets me breathe. But yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is there's a risk of mistakes, wherever you do it. If you want it to kind of feel truly live and as authentic as possible, then yes, probably being in the same room would be ideal. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't feel this suffered at all from us being in different rooms in this particular experience.
I suppose you still had that same kind of, as you were about to go live, the same, thump in the chest and heartbeat going just off the adrenaline.
And the chat, if I didn't have the chat with a band, it would have been very different for me. The fact I got to be able to see them and talk to them and just do my job, because at the end of the day, with all these things, you're under a bit of pressure to just sort of get on with your job. If my guitarist was thinking about what I was doing the whole time, it's likely he'd probably mess up and vice versa. So yeah, like I said, I think, we were all sort of focused on ourselves, but had that sort of relaxed breather to talk afterwards and in between, which is, like I said, so essential for my set in particular.
Thanks, Jade. We are now going to hear from Jason, the creative director, and Tony, the director. Hi, guys. Welcome to the workshop.
Hi there. How are you? Hi there.
Very good, thanks. So, Jason, the visuals for this show were just stunning. Can you tell us a little bit about the creative process behind them?
The delivery was very different, I guess, but the creative process, in a sense, was the same. We took a brief from production. We worked closely with Jade and her creatives to make sure that what we were delivering for the show was very much in keeping with Jade's current album artwork and her aesthetic moving forward. So it would feel as seamless as it possibly could, especially moving into a new platform and a new way of kind of presenting her music. And it had its challenges. So, but I think we, even just communicating the ideas, we weren't able to sit around a table. It was kind of sent out over email. We had Teams calls and things like that. So we were communicating as best we could with the group. And I think we got to version 12, I think, of the PDF, of different PDFs and different visuals as the kind of the ideas and the creative moved on, and the engagement of the technologies were coming together. And then from there, once we got the storyboards and everyone's happy with that, then we started to work with Tony on the previs and working with the music directly. And so Tony and I had a kind of an interplay, which was again quite unique, I think, Tony, for this one.
Yeah, I think so. It was a really, because we couldn't work in the same space, we would literally be bouncing pre-visualizations back and forth. So Jason would send me some graphics. I would then edit it myself with where I wanted certain cuts to be. I was sort of planning where each shot would be, and then I would send that back to Jason, and Jason would then kind of feather the graphics again through where I wanted certain cuts to be, and it was a really organic process. Don't let me interrupt you, Jason. I think
no, it's good. I mean, it was good. It was a way of it was a unique way of working. We then, where we would normally work is we would generally be working directly into a performance visual, which would be on an LED screen, or it would be on a projection surface, or it would be mapped. And we didn't attend site, so we were obviously for the obvious reasons of COVID. So we had to work at a distance. So our communication with Tony was really vital to get the edits right, and then we had to, if you like, deconstruct the edits and then deliver them to our output process, which was working to D3, which is a playback media server, and effectively they had to rebuild the graphics. So we acted as as creative directors and a delivery of assets that were then reinterpreted pretty close to our original vision, but going through each iteration, things shift ever so slightly, but that's part of the joy of it, really, that every interaction with another layer of technology kind of moves it on, and there's always a challenge that something's not quite working, or there's a happy accident. Those things are really good, a really great part of the process. So,
but also, I was going to say, also the other thing with the way that we made this, we didn't know that we were going to use that media server to start with. So Jason and I started off by pulling together we're putting storyboards together of how we might have shot this with different technology, and then we kind of realized that the ambition of the project and getting to know Jade and how her aesthetic worked and how she liked to present herself, we kind of knew that we had to go down a different approach, and that's where we went back to the drawing board and came up with this kind of media server approach, which allowed us to be a lot more creative and cutty and dynamic, and I think it worked really well.
It was a really key moment, wasn't it, where Jade really wanted it to feel, if you like, there's like an analog approach to the digital output, if you like. Things need to feel as in camera as possible, and so that there was almost like a double exposure feel. There was a lightness of touch of color. The band were always needed to be front and center, but we needed to kind of give a sense of a level of kind of building blocks to kind of aid the edit, because we didn't have multiple cameras. So there was a kind of technical thing to achieve, to give variety and keep refreshing the eye through the performances.
And Tony, you were directing the live show. So what were the most challenging aspects for directing a show like this?
Oh, there were many. I mean, firstly, I'd normally meet Jade in person, and we would talk, and we'd sit down and we'd discuss her creative and her vision and her style. And as Jade mentioned earlier, she works with Kate a lot, and so together we would have come up with an approach to how to shoot the band along with Jason. But we couldn't do that, so all our calls had to happen, as video conferences, and obviously I needed Jade to trust me as well. And obviously with social distancing, I couldn't go on any recce's, so I couldn't go to Jade's house to actually see the space. So, which brought up its own challenges. So her first rehearsal was in her bedroom, and it wasn't until we saw it on camera for the first time that I kind of realised that's not going to work. It's just not, and there wasn't enough space. So we were able to move into Jade's living room for the show itself, which gave us some more space to put the photographic paper in, get the camera a bit further away, all that kind of stuff. Working with the band, I was having to guide the band members in over team calls for the pre-record. So asking them to move a mirror or, stand there or turn that light on. It was pretty tricky. But I think the one thing I would say, the hardest bit was because we were making it look so special, is keeping it looking live and people not thinking that we'd pre-recorded it. So we kind of did really simple things like Jade's shot where she spoke in between between the songs. I always let that be the shot that the first performance shot started on, so that the graphic could kind of seep into the picture, so you knew it was continuous and it wasn't a cut to a pre-record. And then obviously having the band, matching the band shots from when they were pre-recorded to when they were live for the chats, allowed us to, between songs, be fully live and let everybody interact.
And Jason, can you talk a little bit about the approach to Love Has All Been Done Before? What was the idea behind that?
It was really a response to the direct emotion of the track. I mean, it went through highs and lows. There was some really kind of ferocious parts in the track that we kind of wanted to kind of have an edit ratio to it to kind of keep refreshing the eye. We wanted to create a sense of depth in places, and also to kind of add this subtlety of colour. And all the treatments were very, in that sense of analog. They weren't overly tricksy, and we didn't want to overplay any level of effects, if you like, but we wanted to create a sense of difference and change between the different environments. And I think we achieved that, and it was a really strong track.
And how different was this to directing, say, a TV broadcast or a music video?
It was quite tricky because in a way we were producing a series of live music videos, really. If you were doing a normal gig, you'd probably busk the performance, so you'd have your cameras in the arena or wherever you are. You'd have breakdowns of all the songs, and then you would just cut your cameras as you feel it, or as you see what you're reactive to what the band are doing at that time. Or the other way of doing it, of course, is you can script a performance as well, where you pre-plan every shot, and so you know what shot each camera is going to offer at a specific time. And that's kind of more along the lines of the approach we took on this. I had to pre-plan every shot because we didn't have lots of cameras. Jade only had one camera right in front of her, and we took various different frame sizes from that one camera to give us a bit of variety. And so not having a lot to work with made it quite tricky. And then there was a second camera which we used very, very sparingly. I used it. It was a wider shot during the chats, and it was a chance to show that Jade wasn't in the studio; she was in her home, because it kind of shot beyond the photographic paper. But then also during some of the acoustic numbers, we could use that camera to give us close-ups of the guitar or things, because we were shooting that a little bit more traditionally because we weren't using quite as many graphic layers on that one.
So what techniques could other musicians and bands and performers use to create their own gig visuals?
That's a good question. I mean, there's lots out there, and I think going from, say, creating the GIF animations for the stickers, for instance, is going back to really the simplicity of really early animation on when the web first kind of came about. 50 frames of simple, almost flicker book animation. So just drawing something or and creating that kind of flicker book, creating a level of movement. It could just be a backdrop. It could be a simple layer that you add over the top. I mean, it depends on what you've got available to you. But with people now having exposed to camera phones and tablets and laptops, where we can generate content, film the world around us, film our artwork, there's lots of opportunity to do something new.
And I'm sure there's lots of other little nifty ways that you can do it, without a big kind of, studio budget, just even with a disco ball or some fancy lights.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, if you're not very au fait with using editing software, for example, then you literally can, as I think Kira mentioned earlier, you can film yourself in front of a white wall and just use different coloured lights, and suddenly it will change the mood of a performance, and you could shoot the same performance time and time again with different colors, or let the colors change, and suddenly you've got, you know, a plethora of things that you can cut together afterwards and come up with really different ideas.
We've got some questions from the audience. So first one, what was your favourite creative aspect of the whole show?
Is that, go ahead.
Well, no, do you know what? I really loved the way the gig started. It started with Ruins, and Ruins is one of those songs that it grows. And so I didn't want to throw all our toys at it right at the start. And so Ruins starts very gently, and so our graphic layer started gently, and then we kind of gradually introduced the band, because, you know, they slowly come into the song, and so it kind of led you into the gig, and it left lots of support. You knew something different was going to happen. By the time that song finished, you were kind of excited about what was coming next. And I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really special moment.
How about you, Jason?
What did I think was what I enjoyed most about it? I mean, I think for me, it was a challenge of working in this situation, I think. And we've got 20 creatives, you know, who normally sat in our studio working together. So working across a group of people, communicating really well, dealing with the challenges of the new technology or the advancements in technology, and how we were going to make it work, how we were going to kind of get our ideas through to the final and product, and also knowing that we had to make changes and we had to adapt. And I think all those challenges are part of a great problem-solving design puzzle, and we love that. So it's good fun.
And Tony, is there anything that you would have done differently if you were to do it again?
I mean, the thing is, we were trying lots of new techniques for the first time. So I think next time round, if we do it again with hindsight, obviously we'd be a lot quicker. But also, I don't know, I think we'd have probably, because we'd have arrived at the conclusion that we could be a lot more, we could push the boundaries a bit further. And so I think next time, I'd really try. There were a few ideas that I kind of had up my sleeve that I could see were developing as the project was going on, but they didn't necessarily suit Jade's style, or we'd already had enough creatives for the songs that we were doing. But there was definitely room to sort of go in different directions if there were sort of different songs that would take us there.
Okay, thank you so much, Jason and Tony. I'm going to get Jade back. Hi, Jade. I mean, visually, it just was a spectacle. It looked absolutely incredible. What were your feelings on it, watching it back?
My feelings on it, I mean, I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of what everyone did. It's a team behind everything, you know, that you see. And I think everyone pulled together and made it feel like me, made it feel like my band, and ultimately, you know, the Surface project. So, yeah, I'm really happy with the performance. Considering I've been off for a few weeks, I'm happy my vocals held out. But yeah, ultimately, I'm really super proud of that.
It looked very profesh. It looked like a professional music video, you could say. Would it be something that you'd be happy to see it played on other music channels?
Yeah, of course. I think, you know, if I'm not happy with something living on the web, usually it sort of doesn't make it. I sort of get my big axe and try and do anything to not let it go up. So you can guarantee that because it's in the wider world, that I'm pretty chill with it. Yeah. But yeah, I'm happy it's out there.
Hacking away, just take it down.
Yeah.
What's this whole experience been like for you? I mean, we heard a little bit earlier about plans for a new album, but what is next in terms of live gigs?
Oh, I mean, if I knew, I would be probably a bit more calm than I am now. Live gigs, I mean, we're probably just going to have to start small and work our way up, which is, you know, no skin off my back, because I love performing live. You know, I am small gigs as well. When I did my last album cycle, my favorite part was probably going to record stores and you know, playing for small groups of people. So I'm assuming that's what's going to have to happen. And until then, you'll probably see more of these projects going on and artists trying to reach out and do what they can to make it feel exciting. But yeah, you know, I think gigs will just have to start small at the end of the day.
And maybe this might be the first of many online gigs.
Yeah, exactly. A whole tour. I mean, I've noticed a lot of bands are doing whole tours of live gigs online now. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe more to come.
Thank you so much, Jade. It's been a pleasure talking to you and having you on. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you so much.
And thank you to the rest of our guests, Jason, Tony, Mark and Kira. Thank you for joining us this evening. So, yes, don't forget that there are a range of tutorial videos available on this channel which offer further advice on how you can put on your own online gig. And if you follow Microsoft UK on YouTube, you can watch the gig back itself, and you can also be kept up to date on new videos as they're released. You've been watching the Resurface workshop by Microsoft Surface. I've been Georgie Rogers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your evening. Goodbye.